What's up, guys? I'm Jack, and I can't find Daisy right now, so I'm just gonna put a pre-recorded meow in here. And welcome to another video. So today something slightly different than normal. It's still gonna be a nuzlocke like my past few challenges, but in this case, we're only gonna be allowed to use weapons and armor and talismans from Stormveil Castle. And I normally don't say this, but I would stick around for this one. This is going to be a very entertaining video. So what are the rules to this run? Well, I'll put them all on screen here. If you want to skip ahead, go for it. But long story short, a nuzlocke is where whenever you die, you lose whatever weapon that you were holding and or using at the time. And if you lose every weapon you have access to, the run is over and you lost. I also have just a bunch of extra little rules that make this challenge even more difficult than it already is. So without further ado, let's get started. So with no armor or weapons in hand, we make our way to Stormveil Castle, and we have a pretty big blockade in our way. And that is Margit. So there's no way I'm beating him without a weapon, so we need to get one. And I feel like even though this tunnel isn't technically Stormveil Castle on the map, it's part of Stormveil Castle. I mean, it is the entrance after all, so if I lure these guys in here in the tunnel and then slowly take them out with my fists and they hopefully drop a weapon, that's okay, right? Yes it is. These are my rules. So I did farm these guys for a little bit like that until I realized that I could summon Sorcerer Rogier. So I would lure a bunch of enemies in here in the tunnel and then let Sorcerer Rogier do all the work for me. It was pretty good. I think this is a pretty good solution to our problem. Now, in the rules, I do want to mention this. I don't allow summons, even in this one. But I do have two exceptions for this run in particular. One of them is Alexander, just because he's awesome and I love Alexander. And the other one is going to be Sorcerer Rogier here, as well as Nefeli Lu, just because we're in Stormveil Castle and I feel like it is more than fair to be able to use whatever we have access to in Stormveil Castle. So after a lot of farming, I did end up getting a shield, a helmet, some boots, and some gloves. And that'll have to do, but I need some more levels, so I go ahead and grab the flail, some blood grease, and I go slay a dragon. That gives us about 40 free levels so that we're not going into this run completely naked. And don't worry if you feel like that was cheap. I did so much rune farming for this run as well. I spent quite literally hours upon hours just rune farming, so yeah. I certainly paid my price here. Anyway, with Margit, I do of course bring Sorcerer Rogier in, and he does help out a bit, but most of the work is done by our Great Shield. Which, by the way, after farming those guys for literally an hour, that is the only weapon that I got from them. That's okay though, because it does allow us to stay pretty safe during the Margit fight, and pretty quickly we are able to take him down and actually go inside of Stormveil Castle to truly begin this run. The first thing I do, of course, is annihilate Gatekeeper Gustok, because he's just a big mean jerk. I'm sure everybody knows this by now, but he stalks you throughout your time in Stormveil, and he'll steal your runes if you die. But anyway, I pick up the Hook Claws, one of the best weapons for this run, and then I grab the Rusty Key, as well as take out this Banished Knight and grab the Curved Sword Talisman from this chest here. And we only have access to 4 talismans during this run. After grabbing the Curved Sword Talisman, I grab the Brick Hammer over here, which is a fantastic weapon, and I try to destroy every enemy in my path in order to hopefully get some gear from them. And from this Banished Knight, I got a sweet helmet, as well as some nice gloves, so that's awesome. The Banished Knight gear is actually really good, so this is exciting. I also get the Exiled Knight chest piece from this Exiled Knight, and then I'm able to climb up the nearby ladder to get the Claw Talisman, which buffs our damage from jump attacks. Oh, and by the way, the Curved Sword Talisman buffs our guard counter damage. I find Sorcerer Rogier in this chapel and I buy the 3 Ashes of War that he is selling. Next up, I fight another Banished Knight and I get his chest piece, which is significantly better than our Exile chest piece. but does give us a heavy load, so I swap out my greaves to be back at medium again. I also grab the Highland axe from this painting, and then go inside of this stone sword key room to grab the Godslayer prayer book and the Godskin seal. So thankfully we actually have access to some pretty powerful incantations, and there's one more that we can get to. But first I grab another Ash of War, the Stormcaller Ash of War from that beetle, and then I fight Nefeli Lu over here in order to get her axes. We could have used her as a summon to fight Godric the Grafted, but I figure her axes might be nicer in the long run. Next up, I farm this Exile Knight and the Banished Knight here for their gear. I'm hoping to get the Banished Knight's Greatsword, which is one of the best greatswords in the game, but I don't get it. I do get his shield, which is nice. But yeah, after farming him for about 30 minutes, I didn't get much, so I just moved on to Godric. And we're going to be using the Hook Claws for this because they are really awesome and they apply a lot of bleed buildup, so great weapons. Yeah, if you're ever having trouble with Godric in a new playthrough, just grab the Hook Claws in Stormveil and that's your key to winning. It makes it so easy. So the Hook Claws are a very quick weapon. The strat is to use a flurry of light attacks to apply a lot of bleed buildup, which is how we got Godric's health down so much already. And it also helps because whenever you two-hand these, you actually get a second one. So yeah, weapons like that are awesome. In fact, we already got 2 bleed buildups and a poise break, which is just crazy. And we're in phase 2, having barely started the fight. And then in phase 2, we can run right up to him while he's doing his big fire attack and get off a flurry of light attacks to hopefully get, another bleed off. And before long, we beat him. Yeah, we just chased him around for a bit and slashed him with our light attacks, and eventually we got the dub. After leaving Stormveil, I run into my other crazy ex-girlfriend, and then we talk to Enya to use the Remembrance of the Grafted to grab the Axe of Godric. So that's pretty cool. We get to use a Remembrance weapon in this run too. After that, we grab the Academy Glintstone Key and go back to farm more weapons. This time around, I got the Banished Knight's Halberd. I also picked up the Cestus. What else did I grab? Hang on, Daisy wants to say hi. Daisy, do your thing. Awesome. Oh, in this room, we actually grabbed like 3 different things. So we grabbed the Misericord, the Iron Wet Blade, the Hawk Crest Shield, and one other. So when we turn this corner, we're gonna come across a soldier carrying a torch pole. And we actually get it. Which is funny, because the last time I did a torch-only run, it took me like 45 minutes to farm for that. Anyway, we grabbed the pike and the wooden great shield as well, but we're not done yet. We hop down the cliff's edge right here, which takes us into a little secret area. I grabbed the Marred wooden shield, the Storm Assault Ash of War, which is just awesome by the way, and then with our Banished Knight's Halberd, we quickly take out the Crucible Knight here, who drops our next incantation. Aspects of the Crucible, Horns, which is a really good incantation. Lastly, I grabbed the Arbalist. So with that, we're ready for the Academy of Raya Lucaria. So I run through the Academy with ease and come across the Red Wolf of Radigan, who instantly wipes me, and we lose our Banished Knight's Halberd, which I had upgraded to like +8. So that's fun. He then beats us again, and we lose both our Hook Claws and our Banished Knight's Great Shield. But finally, I go off and upgrade the Torch Pole, which gets us the dub. But we just lost 3 weapons to the Red Wolf of Radigan, so that kind of sucks. And you'd think this run would be super easy considering how many genuinely powerful weapons that we have access to. But I fucked up so much and died at basically every opportunity presented to me. For example, by the time we got to Godfrey, out of the 26 weapons we have access to in this run, I only had a handful left. And by handful, I mean 4. So expect a lot of stupid and random deaths during this run. I don't know why I did so poorly, but it is what it is, and we're done now, and we can move on. But I think one of the most admirable aspects a person can have is to laugh at their own failures. So we're definitely going to do some laughing at my failures during this run. Like this failure. I lost against Renala, man. So we say goodbye to our sweet, sweet torch pole, So next we use our other spear against Renala, and this does a lot more damage, and we very quickly get a poise break against her. And this should be pretty quick as long as we don't get caught up in one of her combos and instantly die. The strat here is just to continuously run at her and do jump attacks to break her poise, and yeah, she's dead. GG's. So with Renala down, we can continue moving. So we head back to Stormveil to replenish our lost gear, and we have to farm for these next few ones. So the first one is a straight sword known as the Warhawk's Talon. It's the swords that are on these birds' feet for some reason. Really cool weapon and super rare. It's only a 2% drop every time you take down one of these birds. So basically we're going to use our glintstone pebble to take those guys out, and then run over here to fight this exiled knight in the hopes of grabbing his greatsword, which again is just an amazing weapon, so I'm really hoping to get that soon. Finally, right around the corner, there's another large exiled knight with an axe, so we're going to farm him as well to get his crescent moon axe. And through this farming session, we just got the Banished Knight's greatsword. That's it. We didn't get the Warhawk's Talon or the axe. But that's enough. I go ahead and grab the Dectus medallions, head to Altus Plateau, grab a Site of Grace up there, and then we can go back to Caelid to fight Radahn. In the meantime, I also upgraded my Banished Knight's greatsword to, I don't know, +7, I think. So we should have some decent damage against Radahn here. Oh. That sucks. Goodbye, Banished Knight's greatsword. Your service was brief, but it was the best service I'd ever known. Okay. I go ahead and grab Godric's Great Rune for some free levels. Farm the Crescent Moon Axe more, and I do finally get that, as well as the Warhawk's Talon. And with those two, we're actually only missing 2 more weapons. One of them is going to be the Omen Cleaver from this guy right here. And this on its own took about 25 minutes of farming. We would just take out this dog up here, wait for the Omen dude to come around these stairs, and then hit him with some glintstone pebbles to finish him off. It's a great Ash of War for farming weapons, by the way. Anyway, while we were farming the Banished Knight's greatsword, we got this sick helmet. It's one of my favorite helmets in the game, so we're basically going to be wearing this for the rest of the run. And we did eventually get the Omen Cleaver. So the last weapon that we're missing comes from Godric's Remembrance, so we're gonna have to duplicate that eventually, but that won't be for a while. We have a pretty big arsenal right now. 19 weapons and or incantations in total, which is a pretty good amount. That should theoretically be enough to carry us through the entire run. Now, since I've been dying so much, I decided to do some ball farming in order to level up and upgrade my weapons, and this one was a pretty short farm. I really just wanted a few levels to beat Radahn, but a little bit later on I farmed this thing for hours, like literal hours. Anyway, attempt number 2 against Radahn, and we're going to be using the Crescent Moon Great Axe, so that's pretty cool. Should be a pretty easy fight. I mean, the Great Axe does a lot of damage, and we're dead. Okay, that's fun. Goodbye, Crescent Moon Great Axe. You were great. Just great. Okay, so I farmed the ball long enough to upgrade the Highland Axe, and after that we were ready to fight Radahn a 3rd time. The Highland Axe did do a pretty chunky amount of damage with each hit, so that's pretty nice, but we still felt great pain and loss from our loss of the Banished Knight's greatsword and the Crescent Moon Axe. The Highland Axe will have to do though, because I really don't want to lose any more weapons to Radahn. We're basically just running around him trying to dodge as many attacks as possible and getting off heavy jump attacks to hopefully break his poise, which we did, and we get a nice riposte off, taking him below half health. This surprisingly doesn't lead him into his 2nd phase, but a few more hits should do the trick. And Daisy, what are you doing? She's like running around and she's got the zoomies right now. She's destroying everything in my apartment. So Radahn does eventually enter his 2nd phase, and this is where we summon Alexander, Warrior Jar, and he truly is one of the greatest heroes in the land of Ooh. I freaking love this guy. And we don't really need his help here. I just like summoning him because he is awesome. That being said, I certainly didn't mind the help either. Anyway, the goal here is to survive. As you guys have been seeing, we've already lost, what, 9, 10 of our weapons? And we're barely at the 3rd boss. So, yeah, this run's not going great so far, even though the weapons that we do have access to are really strong. So we dodge a big slam attack and get off some more heavy jump attacks, and this is when Radahn does something unforgivable. He destroys Alexander. He hurt my friend. And that is unforgivable. We can't lose this fight. We have to do this not for ourselves, not for the run, but for Alexander. And so, with one final jump attack, we get a poise break, which leads to a riposte, and we shove our axe right in Radahn's head, destroying him once and for all, and getting revenge for our dear friend Alexander. He survived, thankfully, though he is injured. Next up, I die to the Draconic Tree Sentinel, and lose our lovely Highland Axe, and our Omen Cleaver. Great. I was tired of dying, so I farmed runes again for multiple hours and got a lot of levels. So we are significantly more powerful, and we came back and destroyed the Draconic Tree Sentinel with our Warhawk's Talent. We're gonna head to Underground next, which means it's time to fight the Regal Ancestor Spirit. And this thing just runs around the arena for the first 3 minutes of the fight, so I'm just chasing it around trying to get damage off. Really annoying. We're using the Black Flame Blade incantation for this fight as well, which just does so much damage when combined with the Brick Hammer. And really, it's not long before we do eventually get the win. It's just entirely about chasing this thing all around the arena. So, thankfully, one last Black Flame can finish the fight. And I don't feel ready to fight the Gargoyle Twins right now, so we're going to go back to Leyndell and make our way up to Golden Godfrey. So I run through the city until I get to the Avenue Balcony Site of Grace, where I fight this avatar and die, losing my Warhawk's Talon and Black Flame Blade. Lovely. I do come back and finish the job with some Black Flames, but it's just crazy how much I've been dying in this run. Anyway, we continue on, and then I lose my Stormhawk axes to this mayhem. I don't know what's happening. Golden Godfrey was pretty easy. We beat his axe with our axe, and he died. So that's good, I guess. Now we fight Morgott, and we're probably gonna die here too. That's just how it goes, apparently. So we go in with our Great Shield and our Godrick's axe, and while we can't block 100% of the damage Morgott throws at us, we can block a lot of it with the shield, so hopefully that'll help us to not die here. You know, for a giant axe, we're really not doing as much damage as I thought we would. Plus, it doesn't help that Morgott dodges most of our attacks anyway, so yeah. And I think at this point in the run, I was a bit disheartened considering we had just gotten to Morgott and I had already lost about half the weapons. So, yeah, that was kind of sad. And it's at this point that I want to go ahead and thank my channel members, like Mary and Beer. Shout out to you guys, seriously. I really can't tell you enough how amazing you guys are and how thankful I am to have you guys. And Daisy appreciates it too. So, thank you. And if anybody wants to become a channel member, it's in the description. Don't feel like you have to, but if you want to support me and the channel and Daisy, that's a great way to do it. Anyway, we continue fighting Morgott, eventually getting him down to half health and into his second phase. And we only have 2 healing flasks left, so hopefully we can pull out a win here. So upon the start of the second phase, we go ahead and get a charged heavy attack and dodge one of Morgott's attacks in quick succession. A poise break would be so nice here, and unfortunately we do get caught in one of his combos and he takes out about a third of our health. That's okay though, we're still doing pretty good. and we're able to get a jump attack off before he slams us into the ground with his giant hammer, and then almost destroys us with his flaming blood blade. And with that, we are out of healing. And he just took out half of our health already. Or 90% of our health. You know, it might be smart if we just get out of here. This isn't going well. No? We're staying in? Okay, I like the commitment. So the next minute of this fight just involves us running and trying to dodge all of Morgoth's attacks, considering we're at one shot without any healing. And I'm waiting for a good attack opportunity, but it doesn't come, so I just decide to use my memory of grace and escape. So yeah, we escaped with our lives, and the next attempt I decide to use the brick hammer, as well as my black flame to do some extra damage. IMO, the brick hammer is probably the strongest weapon that we still have access to, and black flame is just a really good incantation, so I figured this would be our easiest way to victory. And it was. Black Flame took care of Morgoth in the second phase very, very easily. I figure it's about time to get our final weapon of the run, so we're going to have to find a walking mausoleum, and we go to the one here in Liurnia. And to get on top of this one, you actually have to go on a spirit spring and make it on top of him. And it took me a bunch of tries to actually land on him. It did not happen on my first attempt, but eventually we did land on top of him, and we cleared off the skulls that are on top of him, whatever those are, got the remembrance, and then got the grafted dragon from Enya. And with that taken care of, I think it's time for our lovely cooking break, and this time it is the morning of editing day, so I'm gonna go ahead and make some coffee, as well as one other thing. So I put the beans into my coffee grinder and grind until they are very, very thin, which turns it into espresso roast. I then put water into my coffee machine, of course, and turn it on to let it preheat. Now while it's heating up, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. So we're putting some yeast in a bowl, about half of a packet, as well as some sugar, salt, olive oil, and of course, some water. And it's got to be lukewarm to warm water for this yeast to activate. And with that water in the bowl, we're going to mix everything around for a minute, just until it is nice and homogeneous, and then we're going to go ahead and go back to our coffee and let this guy sit for a couple of minutes. I put my grounds into my espresso thing, I forgot what that's called, and tamp it down with my terrible little tamper. But it does the job. As long as everything is nice and flat, it'll work. So with that all taken care of, we can put that in our espresso machine and let this thing do its job. So once we get our espresso, that's when things get fun, because I pour it out in a separate cup and then pour some milk into my little espresso cup thingy. I then froth the milk, and what you want is, you see on the left side of the screen where that milk is like, moving around a bunch. So that's the sign that you're doing a good job frothing. But after that, I pour some brown sugar in the cup. Apologies for the terrible camera angle. Some vanilla, some honey, and of course our frothy milk. And I'll get a much better shot of how this actually looks after this. Again, sorry for the bad camera angle. But with that done, we get a nice and beautiful frothy latte to start our morning off with. And that's given us the perfect amount of time for our yeast to sit and activate, so we can continue our job here. I put 2 cups of flour into our yeast bowl and mix everything around until it is perfectly combined. Once it's combined, we can move it onto a floured surface, but beforehand, I'm going to take a bite of this hazelnut chocolate cookie that my friend got me from Germany, and then we're going to move our stuff onto our floured cutting board, and we get to kneading. And we knead this dough for about 5 minutes straight, just making sure everything is all together and firm before we eventually move it into a covered and oiled bowl. And I don't know how bakers do this every day. My hands were getting so tired kneading that thing. Those guys must have hands of steel. But yeah, we oil a little bowl, oil the ball of dough, and then cover it to leave it to rest for about an hour. Once it's doubled in size, we put it in a much bigger baking pan, also oiled of course, and we roll it out evenly onto the bottom of the pan. We then oil the top and put divots into this dough to make some room for our tomatoes. It was so satisfying fitting the tomatoes in the divots because it was like the perfect size, but we let that rest for 15 minutes and then put it in the oven at 425 for about 20 minutes until it is beautifully golden brown. Take it out of the oven, top it with some sea salt, and wow, that was great. This is focaccia bread, by the way. Super easy to make, and it was so delicious. I already ate the whole thing, and it's the same day that I made it. Definitely going to be making more of that. Anyway, back to the video. And with that, we've gotten every single weapon that we can get from Stormveil. So now we're going to go ahead and make our way to the fire giant through the mountaintops of the giants, of course, and I forgot to summon Alexander for this fight, unfortunately, but that's okay. It's weird. So, I stayed up way too late last night because my friends roped me into playing ranked Call of Duty, and we stayed up until like 3 a.m. basically, and I was starving at 3, slept till like 11 today, and it's 1 p.m. now and I'm not hungry anymore. So weird. Like, it's just so weird to me. How do you go to sleep hungry and then 10 hours later you're not hungry anymore? What? Sorry, I guess I had caffeine, so my brain is everywhere right now. But anyway, we fight the fire giant with our great axe, and it doesn't do nearly as much damage as I thought it would. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad damage, but it's not nearly as good as I thought. I assumed that with a giant axe we would break the fire giant's ankle brace very quickly, but it actually took a lot of hits to break that thing. But of course eventually we did, and we commanded him to kneel, though that barely tickled him. The fire giant ran away as he does, and after chasing him around for a minute, we are able to catch back up and deal some good damage to his foot. The Black Flame Ash of War is not bad in this fight, so you would think that because it's fire damage it would do like nothing against him, but since it's Black Flame, it does a set amount, like a percentage damage of his health over time, which doesn't change even if you resist fire. So it's actually a pretty solid incantation for this fight, and for basically every fight in the game. Black Flame is awesome. From here, it doesn't take too much longer for us to get into phase 2 of this fight, and phase 2 isn't much more difficult than phase 1. We might actually have a first try victory here for once in this run. At the start of phase 2, I tried the Ash of War again and missed with the first 2 strikes, but the third one did hit him, and it did okay damage, I guess. The first 30 seconds of this fight were just us dodging all the fire damage he was spewing everywhere, and trying to get underneath him to hit him with our axe, which barely tickles him at this point. But we do manage to get a hit on his eye, which does a significant amount of damage. And before long, we're actually able to get a poise break, which is awesome, and we can get a riposte, which doesn't do nearly as much damage as I thought it would. I mean, look at that. That barely tickled him. It's okay though. After chasing him around his arena for literally 2 minutes, getting off light attacks whenever we had a chance, we were eventually able to finish this fight on our first try, getting a victory for once, which felt really nice. Now I felt ready for the Valiant Gargoyle duo, and for once, they didn't give me any problems. That was an easy fight. I will certainly take that. We then grab all the Newman's runes from these ants down here, and all the rune arcs. Super helpful. Always do this in your runs if you're in deep root depths. And we continued through the Lake of Scarlet Rot to eventually make our way to Estelle. For this fight, I decided to bring the Cestus because we haven't used it yet, and it does more damage than I thought it would. Surprisingly, gloves made out of leather with some metal on it deal a really good amount of damage to this cosmic deity. So that's good at least. And we do manage to get some more attacks off, dealing some decent damage in the process, before Estelle does go for a grab attack and actually manages to catch us in it. And I got scared and quit out of the game before we died. That being said, upon further reflection, I realized that we would have survived that regardless. So that's good. And I know that because when we came back in this fight with our brick hammer, we get grabbed by the same grab attack and it didn't deal that much damage. So yeah, that's cool. I quit out for literally no reason, but that's okay. Better to be safe than sorry. And if you guys don't think quitting out is fair, that's totally okay. Please let me know in the comments. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. But I personally think if you're quick enough to quit out before you die, it's fine. Oh my god, we almost died there. We should quit out again. Anyway, our brick hammer does a lot more damage to Estelle than our Cestus does, which makes this fight pretty free. And as I said, we do get grabbed by Estelle during this fight, but it's really not that much damage. I think we would have been able to tank that earlier on, but maybe not. Either way, we can continue this fight and beat Estelle pretty quickly from here. The brick hammer, in my opinion, is definitely the best weapon we still have access to. The Banished Knight's greatsword would have been better, but that's long gone, unfortunately. Crumbling Farm Missoula and the Godskin duo are next on our list, and for once, these guys didn't give us a problem either. With the help of some sleep pots and our giant axe, we took them down relatively quickly and easily. But of course our troubles weren't over quite yet, because we have to get to Malekith. And Malekith always destroys me somehow, one way or another. Alright, let's give this a try. So Malekith just always gives me trouble for whatever reason, and we start off the fight by charging at him with our Grafted Dragon. And the thing about the Grafted Dragon is that you can't two-hand it, so we can't really block or counterattack with it unless we're wielding a shield. So we also have a great shield on us. My goal here is to guard and go for guard counters as much as I possibly can, but that was proving to be pretty difficult as I almost died immediately. Turns out this great shield doesn't block 100% of the damage Malekith does to us, so it was actually very quickly draining our health. It also didn't help that I was mistiming my dodges and getting hit by random attacks here and there, and he was very quickly draining all of our healing items. On top of that, even though the Grafted Dragon was currently at +9, almost fully upgraded, we were barely doing any damage to him with each hit. So as we got further into this fight and lost more and more healing flasks, I decided to swap to a slightly stronger weapon, hopefully. I wanted to try out the spear so that I could block with the shield and hit him with the spear at the same time. It worked a little bit, I guess, but not as well as I wanted it to. And I used another healing flask, leaving us with only a few left. That's not great, and I was really hoping for a poise break by now, but it's fine, I think. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this isn't going well. We eventually swapped over to Godric's Great Axe, and since I had run out of healing, I decided to use my Memory of Grace to escape. Attempt 2 went a bit better. We brought Godric's Great Axe in for the entire fight, got to the end, and then, of course, our life was taken by Malekith. One can simply not avoid destined death. So we lost a shield, we lost our Great Axe, and next attempt I decided to go in with my favorite brick hammer. I don't know what I would have done without this beautiful weapon, this beautiful hunk of stone. I think the first Nuzlocke I did on this channel was with rock weapons only, and this brick hammer carried me through that so much. This is such a great weapon. It's no Giant's Crusher, of course, but pretty darn good nonetheless. Eventually, I decided to just focus on using Black Flame, because having some extra range for Malekith is quite nice, and it does some very respectable damage to him. So I was hoping that the Black Flame could get us the win. And after running around and dodging his attacks for a minute, it did. We hit him with one final Black Flame, and there's Malekith. I only lost 2 things against him. Not too bad, I suppose. We arrived safely in Lanedale Ashen Capital, and I decided to bring the Grafted Dragon in, as well as my Black Flame and Aspect of the Crucible incantations. So if we lose all 3 of these. And I lost all 3 of those. I promise I'm not just doing this to make the run more suspenseful. I brought the Cestus and the Arbalist in next and died again. Next was a Great Shield and the Pike, and I got blasted into a different dimension. I should have just brought the hammer in the first time, because that's what got us the victory against Sir Gideon off here. He just took like 6 of our things. So, I'm not gonna lie, it's not looking good. We have the brick hammer, we have a couple shields, and the Misericord. Oh, we just lost the brick hammer and our shield. Okay. We have 2 shields left, and we lost those 2. Okay, run over. This was far and away the worst I've ever played for one of these videos, but our loss gave me an unprecedented opportunity to beat the rest of the game exactly how I want to. So I grabbed my favorite weapon, the Scythe, and my favorite Ash of War for the Scythe, Phantom Slash. And since we no longer have any rules, I'm gonna have fun with this, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Next up, I grabbed my favorite talisman, the Erd Tree's Favor +2, and then fought Rykard with the Serpent Hunter upgraded to +9, so we absolutely demolished him. After upgrading our scythe, we make our way to the Crumbling Farm Azula to speak to Alexander, and the true warrior that he is, he challenges us to a duel, which we promptly win, but he fought well. He truly is a great warrior. He gave us his Shard of Alexander, which boosts our skill, Phantom Slash, by 15%, and with that we absolutely destroy Commander Nile, make our way to the Consecrated Snowfield, grab the Site of Grace at Ordina, and then come back here to Altus Plateau to defeat Eleonora here and grab her Crystal Tear, and she did not stand a chance. And with that Crystal Tear in hand, we could go ahead and fight Mohg. And I'm not expecting a tough fight here. If you've never used the Scythe with Phantom Slash, it is awesome. Scythes are hands down my favorite weapon in Elden Ring and just in fantasy in general, just because I think they're edgy and cool. And the Phantom Slash Ash of War on this Scythe just does so much damage. And it gets even better when you have the talismans that increase damage with successive attacks like Millicent's Prosthesis, but I forgot to do Millicent's questline, so we don't have that. But as you guys just saw, we annihilated his health bar with this Ash of War because it is so good. But of course, he heals up for phase 2. That's not really a problem. We have a lot of healing left and a lot of damage that we can deal to him, so we just got to make sure not to get wiped by his various bleeds. We dodged the first few attacks he throws at us in phase 2, as is customary for this fight, and once we get an opportunity, we use Phantom Slash to... oh my god, that is so much damage. Yeah, one more Ash of War and this fight's over. Oh, okay, maybe 2 more. Oh god, back up, please back up. Oh! Okay, we barely survived all that blood flame, and managed to finish off Mohg without too many issues. With Mohg done and dusted, we can head into the Shadow Realm and grab my favorite crystal tier of all time, the Deflecting Hard tier. And that just requires a lot of poise breaking and jumping, and we don't have too much of a problem with that. We get it on our first try. After this, it's time to fight Placidusax, and I died to his big dumb laser attack on our first attempt. Second attempt, however, goes a lot better, as I am able to just run straight through, and I just forgot to hit record, that's why you're seeing the end of it. But we annihilated Placidusax on our second attempt. This brings us back to Godfrey, and I don't think he's going to give us too much trouble this time around. He throws his axe at us and we dodge it pretty easily, though he also dodges one of our Ashes of War. We then get hit for a little bit of damage by his big dumb earthbending attack before we guard counter and smack him. Our Ash of War also does some pretty good damage to him, and right about now he's one hit away from a poise break. So we get that poise break, repose, and we should be getting a bleed here pretty soon too. After this poise break, I decide to heal up first, before backing up to go for some Ashes of War, and get the bleed off and take him down to about half health. His second phase should be any second now. Yep, there we go. With the second phase begun, I need to heal up again, so we back up, do that, and then go for a few dodges so we don't get caught up in this big dumb earthbending combo. Well, that's more of an AoE attack, but still. We get an opening for one use of our Ash of War, and it does pretty good damage, but he does hit us with his rocks once more. A jump attack chips away a little bit more of his health bar, and then he almost destroys us there. We are left quite literally with 1 HP before we can heal back up and get ready for more attacks. Another use of our Ash of War takes him pretty close to dead, and he goes for a big AoE attack. I don't know why I used the Ash of War at that moment, but it's totally fine. We got some chip damage off, and we get a full Ash of War combo off right here, finishing this fight. With Godfrey down, there's nothing left for us to do, except head to the Elden Beast fight. Well, and Melania, but we are of course going to be saving the best for last. So we start this fight off the same way we start every fight off. We activate our Deflecting Hard tier and get to work. First Ash of War does about 3,000 damage before we get a guard counter off, again dealing massive damage, and then one more guard counter will take him into a poise break. Unfortunately, we miss a few of our next attacks, so we don't get that poise break off, but we can heal back up to full, and get ready to start attacking again. We guard counter his next hammer pound attack, and then the next one, and then the next one. And that takes us into a poise break, where we can get a beautiful riposte off, taking him down to about half health. As he's standing back up, I decide to heal back up to full, and then use an Ash of War to get off some pretty good damage. Ratigan slams down with a burst of holy damage, but he misses, and we get off a full Ash of War combo, dealing massive damage. And I'm saying damage a lot here, but that's okay. He goes for his triple overhead holy slam attack here, and before he can finish it, we defeat him with one last Ash of War. Ratigan's down, and we are fully healed up, ready for the Elden Beast. A flurry of attacks from us at the beginning of the second phase of this fight takes down a pretty big chunk of the Elden Beast's health. Unfortunately, with this build, we don't do a lot of poise damage, so I don't think we're going to get a poise break here anytime soon, but that's okay because our Ash of War deals all the damage that we need. Phantom Slash is really amazing, and I would definitely recommend trying it out if you haven't yet. The next minute of the fight was just us chasing the Elden Beast around the arena, as he was pretty scared of our raw power from this build. Eventually we caught up and began chipping away at his health bar once more, taking him down pretty low. The Elden Beast was not long for this world, and I think he knew it because at this point he was just letting us get some free attacks off. Well, he wasn't letting us, but we still did it anyway. Before we could finish him off, he ran away once more, but as soon as he landed back in the arena, we were on top of him, ready to finish this fight and move on to Malenia. We teleport back to Ordino, Liturgical Town, to do the puzzle in here, and did you guys know that this was even a drop that you could get? I got a chest piece from these Albinurics here, and I had never seen that before in my life. It's a really cool chest piece though, I like it a lot. Loretta was a bit of a joke here. Unfortunately, we did die a few times on our way to her, but once we got here, she was pretty easy. And with Loretta down, we can move on through the Hallowed Tree to collect another talisman that I really need, the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman, which negates physical damage by the utmost. So we climb the roots of the place, hop down into this hole in the ceiling, grab it from this chest, and we miraculously survive this flurry of attacks from a bunch of enemies. We then take a ride down the elevator and arrive at Malenia's arena. And she did defeat me about 4 times before this fight, so I respect my skill points to have the most possible damage out of this scythe, and we're ready for a fight. that was suspiciously easy. I don't think our next challenge is going to be anything like this. Well, I had a lot of fun using sights. It was really nice to be able to use my favorite weapon once more. And, well, if you guys want to subscribe, if you like this sort of content, your subscription would mean the world to me. It's free to you, but again, helps me out so much. But if you don't want to, if you don't like this content, that's totally okay, I understand. Your viewership is always enough for me. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a good one. I have a good idea for next week, so stay tuned. Peace.